So, in continuing from the previous reaction, we go on to reaction number 2 of the Halloween edition of Gargantuas Reacts. Today we're going to be taking a look at 3 disturbing real food delivery horror stories by our good friend Mr. Nightmare. So, all things considered, this should be fun. So, without further ado, let's get the scares on. Oh yeah, that's real spooky, and I should know. Story number 1.
I work as an Uber Eats driver at night to make a little extra cash.
Oh really?
Friday and Saturday nights are always the busiest because everyone's either home or with friends and ordering food. So those were usually the nights I would work. I got a request on a Saturday night at 1 a.m. to pick up McDonald's for a guy named Kyle. He lived a few minutes away from my current position. So I punched in the nearest McDonald's, which was like a 2-minute drive away, and picked up his order. It was a small order. I think he only wanted 2 hamburgers. He lived like 5 to 7 minutes away from the McDonald's.
Oh really?
I followed the app's directions to the house, and eventually it led me to a short dead-end street that veered off another dead-end street. The house was the last one on this dead-end road. It sat right
Bad idea, bro. Better get out of there quick.
It was pretty much dead at this hour. Given how late of an hour it was, I didn't want to ring the bell, so I called this Kyle guy's number. It rang once, then went to voicemail, so I hung up. Then I got a text from him. He told me to come to the door, and so I did. I got to the big wooden front porch of the house, and soon the front door opened. A bald guy opened the door, only he didn't look very old. He looked to be in his 30s, yet his head was completely bald. Maybe he was sick or just liked that look, so I didn't judge. His breath was disgusting, and he seemed so that was a little off-putting. The payments were done through the app, so usually there was no need to wait around for money. This Kyle guy asked me to come put the pizza on his kitchen table while he ran to fetch a tip.
Wait, so you were actually in that? Oh god,
in his kitchen, which by the way was only lit up by a small outlet-sized nightlight, so it was pretty bright.
I would get the fuck out of there.
It was. Kyle was taking awfully long down in the basement fetching this tip, so I started to wander a bit. I stepped into the living room, which was adjacent to the kitchen. The TV was on in there, which was the only reason I could see anything. However, the stench was even greater in this room. Then I noticed that the back door was slid half open. Maybe he was airing out whatever that putrid odor was. For the hell of it, I walked to the back door, expecting to get a quick breath of fresh air, but the smell only got worse. Then, finally, I stepped outside onto the man's back deck. I heard flies. The sound of a swarm of flies, right by the door. I guess a motion-sensing light saw my movement and turned on, revealing 2 big black garbage bags stuffed with 2 long objects. The smell was unbearable, too. It took me a second.
Immediate out!
Suddenly,
immediate out!
It didn't seem like a good idea anymore. I went back inside and rushed to the front door, and just then I heard Kyle emerge from the basement calling to me, waving a few singles in his hand. He saw me about to open the door and asked me
I'd be like, screw you, guy. I'm getting out of here.
I said I was just rushing to check if I had something in my car.
I am Howdy
He said,
9000.
oh, okay, as he came over to me and handed me the bills. Then he turned to the back door, to the porch, where the light was still on. Then he looked back at me, with his gummy smile now disappearing. He asked me in a firm voice if I went to his backyard. I told him no, and he just stared at me, not saying anything. I didn't give any fucks anymore.
Immediate signs to get out of there.
But not without him grabbing my shoulder as I got onto the stoop. I yanked his hand off my shoulder and ran to my car. I saw him run back inside with the front door still open. I turned my car on, but I sat and watched his front door, curious to see if he'd come back out. And he did. He came back out, running full speed for my car with a big metal rod in his hand. I drove away from his house, ready to call the police and report him. I called when I got down the block, making sure to leave him no time to dispose of those potentially dead bodies. I waited down the block and saw police cars pull up literally within 2 minutes. I watched the whole thing as I told police where to go. In fact, Kyle, if that's his real name, had already started moving the bags, which did contain dead bodies, to the bushes in his backyard. Everything about this guy was off.
Yeah,
But
you
the back
think?
door open to reveal dead bodies to a...
You should have immediately got out of there, but the second thing seemed off.
Smartest man around.
You fool! Okay, so, story number two. So what could be possibly scarier than that?
I deliver food for an Asian eatery in my town. It's the best gig I could get.
Kung Fu restaurant, huh? I might actually try there
We're
sometime.
actually the only two who are in Asia.
But not just for the
My friend
food.
usually works there and takes phone calls. I usually do deliveries, and that's the way I like it. My friend got off the phone during one night shift we had together and told me I'd be doing a delivery.
Oh, really?
After the food was prepared, I was handed a brown paper bag and I was off on my way. The address I was given led me to some small dirt driveway off the main road, onto an enclosed property. Don't picture it as some luxurious private property, though. It was some old, unkempt excuse of a property. And the house seemed to be closed off, given that there wasn't a single light on in there, and how high the grass was. I called my friend back at the restaurant, and he gave the phone to our boss.
That looks like the old classic setting of a Conjuring movie.
An accent to knock on the door and don't waste the food.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a house like this in The Conjuring.
That's how tall it was. I went up the 3 stairs to the front door and knocked really loud since there didn't seem to be a doorknob. As I expected, after 30 seconds of waiting, there was no answer. So I got back in my car, and first thing I did was start texting my friend back at the restaurant. But when I looked up into the house, this time one of the upstairs lights inside of the house was turned on. So I went back to the door and knocked once again. Only on the first knock, the door pushed open slightly. I opened the door, but there was nobody standing next to the door.
Yeah, no.
I pushed the door open and called out, "Hello." My voice
With a house like this, I'd be like, fuck this
I was
shit.
waiting to hear footsteps come to the door. They never did. Obviously, someone had to have opened the door, so if they weren't going to come to the door, I had to assume they wanted me to come in.
Yeah, and that's probably, like I've been saying the past couple times, a good sign to get the hell out of there. God!
I stepped into the house, and my shoes made the wood floor creak. I called out one more time, and this time someone replied back. I heard the words aquí arriba. Now, I'm not fluent in Spanish by any means.
To be fair, neither am I.
And I knew arriba meant above.
I know basic
So I put two and two
Spanish, but
together
not
and figured
fluent
it
in
said
Spanish.
here. There was a stairway in the middle of the hallway, so I walked over to it and stopped at the bottom step. I looked up the stairs, and all I saw at the top was an arm reached out over the ledge, doing a little stiff come here motion. I used what little Spanish skills I'd gained from middle school and said something like "Tango tu comida" as I walked up the stairs. As I got about halfway up the stairs, the arm wasn't there anymore. I got to the top looking for whoever was just standing by the ledge over the stairs.
My nostril.
Then I noticed through the tiniest amount of light that the person was now inside a bedroom with the lights off. But I didn't see the actual person. Once again, all I saw was the person's arm, doing that same come here motion. It's as if anything above the person's elbow was faded to black in that room. It was such an eerie sight. I knew for certain I wasn't going in that room, though.
Yeah.
So I said firmly with confidence, "Buddy, I'm not going in there. You come out here with money or I leave." So
Just
I
leave.
pulled away into the darkness of the room ahead of me.
This house alone should have been enough of a sign for to get out of there.
I was hit by a
God, why, people?
so fast that it took me a
Why?
few minutes to realize I'd just been hit with a stiff, severed arm. It wasn't some plastic Halloween toy. It was a real arm. I ran down the stairs with the food still in my hand and got back to my car. I didn't even call my friend or my boss. I drove straight to the nearest neighboring house and rang that person's doorbell. When they answered, I told them about what their neighbor had just done to me. And the woman had the most puzzled look on her face. She said nobody's lived in that house for a year. I felt my stomach drop when those words hit me. She said she would call the police after we talked about it for a good 5 minutes. Then I went on my way back to the restaurant with the food. I explained the best I could to my boss, and he let it go. I sometimes wonder how things would have played out if I went into that room, and who or what I would have found.
Given the arm, you probably would have found something that would have scarred you for the rest of your damn life. Story number 3.
I used to work at Domino's.
Screw Domino's. Domino's sucks. Just order from the real bigwigs like Papa John's, Pizza Hut, Hell, I would prefer getting something from Little Caesars over Domino's. Blech. Ugh. Ugh.
They close at 3 a.m. on weekends, and being that I was taking an off year during college at the time of the story, my boss took advantage of that and always threw me on the 9 to 3 a.m. shifts. There would always be at least 3 people working that late. One to cook the pizzas, one to take orders, and one to do any needed deliveries. This night the one cooking the pizzas was Jeff, a 28-year-old Italian guy who worked 2 jobs. He was always in a bad mood, so when he told me to deliver something, I did it without complaints. So, being a Saturday night, it wasn't uncommon to get calls for deliveries past 2 a.m.
Oh, you
Around
think?
2:30, I was told to deliver 2 pizzas to an address that I still
Actually, what am I saying?
remember.
That
27 Crocker Drive,
I don't
or something
know.
close to that. I took my stupid, beat-up 2002 Honda Civic up the road for 5 minutes. The only main road that
2002?
cuts through our tiny
Jesus.
ass town. I live in the Manchester Township area in Jersey, containing a whole lot of nothing but trees everywhere. My drive there was a dark one. After merging off the main road onto smaller roads with no streetlights, the only light that could be seen for miles were my headlights. I turned off the public road onto a dirt road with a private property sign posted outside. It seemed I had arrived to the house I was delivering to, when suddenly I heard a bang reverberating through my car, followed by a weakened sense of handling of my car, as well as a repeating flopping sound. I knew for certain I'd just got a flat tire. I stopped the car at once and got out to confirm. The tire was
You're
completely
screwed.
I could
Flat
see
tire
headlights
in the middle of
from
nowhere.
distance from
Yeah.
the car, though.
You're as
So
good
instead
as
of
dead,
calling my insurance
buddy.
company, it would make more sense to deliver the pizza and also ask that person for help. I got to the deck of
No,
the house.
I don't think this
It
is
was
a
an
good
average
idea.
size house, completely enclosed by trees, as were most of the houses around here. The lights were on inside, but all the blinds were shut. I rang the bell, and quickly a normal-looking young man answered the door. Before exchanging the pizzas for money, I told the man about the predicament I just found myself in. A look of concern came over his face as he handed me the money and I handed him the pizzas. He came outside to take a look at my car with me. It was a 30-second walk from the house. We got to my car, and he started analyzing the tire. He said he could help me, he'd just need his tools from inside. I started questioning what I could have hit on his dirt driveway, and he yelled out to me, "Don't worry about it," as I was walking down his road. I walked a bit further, kind of ignoring him. I noticed a spike strip in the road. A very small one, but undoubtedly what I hit. I couldn't see any other reason for that to be there, other than him putting it there deliberately. I started thinking over the possibilities of what could be going down, so I pretended I didn't see the
I can
spike
think of quite a
strip and
few,
walked back saying I
actually.
didn't find anything. He looked at me. I was worried he might have been suspicious. But then he turned away and said he was going inside to get some tools. God only knows what he meant by tools.
Yeah, he probably means
I ran to his
weapons.
front door before I got back in my car, turned the car on, and threw it in reverse. I was not sticking around there to find out what he was doing. I heard the flat tire wobble on the dirt road as my car slowly rolled in reverse. I made a point of avoiding the spike strip this time. As my car pulled out of the private dirt road onto the concrete road, I took one last look down the man's driveway to make sure he wasn't following me, then I took off. I couldn't drive too fast though and risk of damaging my wheel. I stayed at a steady 10 to 15 miles per hour. I looked in my rearview mirror
Fuck that.
and saw
I'd
something
be
behind me.
driving 55.
Running
Maybe even more than that.
I had no choice but to step on it, forcing me to cringe as I could literally feel the damage being done to my wheel. The distance between my car and the man got greater until he was out of sight. After turning back onto the one main road that I'd mentioned earlier, I slowed down the speed a little bit, back to 10 to 15. It was a long ride back, about 20 minutes since I had to drive slow. When I got back, the place would be closing in 10 minutes, but I had to return the Domino's sign that they make us put on our cars when doing deliveries. Jeff was upset with me that I took so long, until I told him the whole story. The woman who was also working the same shift as us listened in with a look of shock on her face the whole time. The time
Why?
came to close. Jeff told me I should just drive home slow since I live like down the block, and that I should take care of it tomorrow. The two went off to their cars and drove away. I sat in my car for a little bit, thinking. Eventually I turned my car on and started my slow drive back to my house. I noticed, however, that a car without its lights on was following close behind me for a while. so I pulled over in front of some small house to see if they would do the same. The car passed me, but then pulled over on the same side of the street a little further down. I started to panic, knowing it had to be the man, who figured that he'd find me at the Domino's that he ordered from. I couldn't lead him to my house, so even though I didn't know for certain if it was him, I had to be overly paranoid and call the cops. I had police come to my exact location for fear of being followed. After 5 to 10 minutes of waiting, the cop car slowly rolled down the street and I beeped my horn to stop him. He stopped in reverse so that his windows were lined up with mine, and then we both rolled them down. I pointed at the car in front of me with its lights off, sitting a little further in front of me. But just then, that car zoomed out from its parked position, lights still off, instantly disappearing down the road into the night. The cop put his lights on and sped after him without saying a word. I didn't know if he wanted me to follow him, but I couldn't with my tire, so I drove home as quick as I could and parked my car in the driveway. I still don't know if that cop caught that driver. Somehow I doubt it, but I like to imagine he did. Either way, I always made sure to watch my back every time I drove home after that night, and I quit that job 2 months later.
Yeah, good idea. Oh, well, things kind of got a little silent there in the last minute, I'm not gonna lie. Even as a terrifying creature myself, I gotta admit, that was quite gripping as usual. So good on you, Mr. Nightmare. You've outdid yourself again. Those were pretty creepy, I'll admit. So join me over to the next video when we talk about yet another, not talk about, but react to yet another story from our good friend Mr. Nightmare. And like before, if you plan on stopping here for Halloween, well, all I can really say to you is, sweet dreams.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to me if you want to see more videos like this. Follow me on Twitter at King Gargantuas if you want to know what I'm up to. And if you want to support videos like this plus the many other ideas that I have in the near future, be sure to support me on patreon.com/KingGargantuas. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you all next time.